Hello, everybody. Welcome. So nice to see all of your faces. Welcome to our session today. I am Laura Holliday. I'm the founder and CEO of Tide Risers. I'm so happy to see some familiar faces, people who are Tide Risers alumna, and also we have joining us today some people who are joining our community for the first time now. And people who are going to be participating in our upcoming spring 2021 cohort, including Melva LaJoy Jones, who I'm so thrilled to introduce you all to today. She has been a member of our community for a while. She was a speaker at our summit in October. Her talk was so well received and just had such rave reviews that she very kindly and generously offered to give it to us again today, I believe, with some updates. I just want to let you all know we are recording this. We record our sessions so that members who aren't able to attend at this time can check out the video afterwards. So just be aware of that. And I hope that you all, if you're, actually, before I get there, if you could just pop into the chat section and tell us your name, where you're dialing in from, and let us know if you are a Tide Riser already, if you're new to our community and haven't been here before, if you're joining our spring cohort, and also please, for the coaches who are online with us, because we have several of our coaches, if you could pop into the chat and just identify yourself that way, that would be great. So without further ado, I want to pass it over to Melva. Thank you so much, Melva. It's all yours.
Thank you. I'm excited. Hi, everybody. I am beyond excited to have this conversation with you today, titled Lessons to My Younger Self. And I wouldn't say it's just a conversation, it's more like storytelling. And for those of you who participated in the conversation last year, I have made some updates, but even if you hear some information from the previous presentation, I hope you take away something new. So, 2 disclaimers. 1, I am using double screens. So if I lose eye contact with you, I'll be back in a second. And the second thing is I live in downtown DC, and surprise, surprise, there's a water main break. Gotta love it. Yeah. So if you hear drilling, that is not an intentional soundtrack. And I thank you in advance for your grace. So, to get us prepared to have any conversation, to tell a story, I always like to read something to ground us in this moment. And so I'm going to read a statement, and then we're going to take a quiet moment of reflection, and then we'll get into the content. Okay. So, it reads, quiet that voice of doubt inside of you. You are good enough. You do deserve good things. You are smart enough. You are worthy of love and respect. You are amazing just the way you are. Thanks, everybody. And I want to welcome everybody because I see some new faces to this space. I'm going to get ready to share my screen to begin our story time together. So, thumbs up if you can see my screen. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Let's get started. So before we get into the meat of the content, I want to share with you my intentions. So my intentions for today start off with this concept of storytelling, which is new for some of you. I have this perspective that humans, some may say particularly women, we don't do a great job of telling authentic stories, right? sometimes we're so successful that it's hard to revisit the cracks, the crevices, the lessons learned along the way. And so today, I hope through sharing my story that I'm demonstrating the power of storytelling. Because I believe that your story, my story, our story, there may be a nugget in there for the next person to go on the next day. And so in that spirit, I intend to be really vulnerable. And I want to be honest with you that this vulnerability won't be easy. It won't be easy for me. And you're going to hear things that may trigger some emotions. Now, it's not my intent to make you uncomfortable or to bring back non-positive things. But if you need a moment, take that moment, go off camera, and I hope you come back to this space. And as we're in this space, I want to invite you to reflect, take notes, reflect after this time. I encourage that. And then finally, time permitting, I want to hear all your questions because I'm going to say a lot. I'm just going for it. I'm going all in. And so let us frame together, what is doubt? So what I'd love to see in the chat, and so I'm looking down at the chat, is perspective on doubt. So drop in the chat for me, when I say doubt, what comes up for you? Let's see what I see. Don't be shy. Shame, uncertainty, insecure, fear of judgment, ooh, imposter syndrome, and the confidence, worry. Yeah. So for today's conversation, and please continue to communicate with each other, this is how I'm viewing doubt. So it's that uncertainty. Ooh, shrinking. I want to be talking about that. That uncertainty. So the funny example I like to give is when we see a guy or we see a gal and we don't know if we should approach them. We're not sure if they would be open to our advances, right? We're uncertain. That's the fun example. Another thing would be that lack of conviction, right? So I could probably claim this one. So I really want French fries most days. But I tell myself I should have the carrot juice. I should have the avocado toast. But the doubt creeps in and says, but am I really going to lose weight? Am I really going to be healthy? And so doubt decides what the ending is before I even begin. Unsureness. So now let's get into more professional examples. So some of you may be in a career for 15, 20 years. You've been doing excellent work, and yet you still don't know if you should ask for the raise, the promotion. What are the consequences? What if they don't look at me the same, right? And so for today's journey, I am defining doubt as an emotion that can diminish your power. And what do I mean by diminish? It can decide the end before it's even started. Doubt can shrink you. Doubt can restrain you from your greatest potential. Or doubt as a tool, which is how we'll end, can be the catalyst that ignites your resilience. And so I only know one way to tell the story of doubt, and that's to tell you about me. So bear with me. So to know me is to know my mother, Joyce Kennedy. Joyce Kennedy, as she would say, the Black Kennedys, which, by the way, is completely untrue. She is a force. My mother in her youth, 5'11", beautiful brown skin, always with a red lip, captain of the cheerleading team, homecoming queen. I think we all know some woman who was that person, right? So as a kid, there is no one I wanted to be more. But Melva LaJoy, her mini me, never really got that growth spurt. I'm 5'6", dad's 6'3", mom's 5'11". I'm still holding out. It's still possible, right? Totally, it's totally possible. And so at a young age, I started to realize that kids were different than me. And where I honed in was on my hair. I remember going swimming, and I would see my friends of the time who have a different racial identity than myself, and they would shake their hair. And it was flowing. It was everything I saw in the commercials. But when I shaped my hair, it didn't move. It was puffy. It was hard. It didn't blow in the wind. And so I didn't know at a young age how to articulate what I was feeling, how uncomfortable I was. So I pulled out my hair until the point I was bald for years. Because everywhere I looked, I thought I was getting the message that brown, black, Afro puff wasn't beautiful. And so the first doubt was, I can't be beautiful giving my brown skin, my heritage, and everything that came with it. And so before I go on to the second doubt, I want to acknowledge that what I'm about to say required a lot of work, a lot of therapy, a lot of time to process, and it is sensitive. So here's that moment that I mentioned early on. So what happens when you feel like you're not worthy, you're not attractive, you're ugly? You start to make what I call doubt-based decisions. And I call doubt-based decisions rooted in a place of fear and insecurity. And how that played out through my life as a woman is with men. With men. Men cheated on me, fine. I was so excited that they would pay me, brown skin girl, me, any attention. It would pay out in getting beat. And beat to the point that after I was beat, I would apologize for not being who they needed me to be. Because doubt told me I was so lucky to have anything. And then it would explode. And I would find myself in my 20s being gang raped. Gang raped. And even then, doubt. What did doubt do? Well, if I'm being honest with you, I cried out to my mother. You try to pass the time. But eventually doubt circled back and told me, obviously, this is what I deserved. Of course, look at who I am. Look at what I've been through. So of course, this would happen. And so the second doubt, no one's gonna see me beyond this skin, beyond this hair, and now beyond my past. And so what did I do? Well, I probably did something similar to what all of you have done, maybe some of you. I went into hyper superwoman mode. Spoiler alert, she doesn't exist, right? Everything's not fine. We have battles in the dark. She doesn't exist. But my superwoman decided then and there that I was on a mission. And my mission was to be married. And so I pursued that mission pretty aggressively. Again, I'm trying to find someone, anyone who can deal with who I am. And so eventually I found my Mr. of the moment. I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be perfect. We're going to get married. I'm going to be a mom. I'm going to uplift my kids. It's going to be a dream. And so in the midst of not dealing with me, I didn't see something. Sure, I knew maybe I had grown a little bit, but that was the designer. Those were the clothes. That wasn't me. And sure, I was in horrendous pain, but that was stress. That wasn't anything to pay attention to. Well, I should have paid attention, because what I was ignoring would eventually grow to be a 6-pound tumor. And to put it in perspective, one of my doctors said, you can think of that tumor as the size of a small fetus. Now, Doubt had a field day, because I would have to have, not one, but 2 surgeries, and I would be infertile. What did Doubt say? Look at the list. It said no one's going to want me. I can't do the thing that we're socialized to believe is one of our core identities as women. And so I went on another journey. I went on another mission, and that was to rebuild, revitalize my business, LaJoy Plans. And actually I did. After my surgery, and there are 2 people here who I worked your event right after my surgery. I don't think they knew that. So I would come back with a vengeance. And in 2020, my company was pulled out, however that phrase goes, from the ashes. And we had 42 events booked. But what wasn't on the business plan was COVID, right? And so what did Doubt say? I lost 98% of my business. I can't sustain a business. And in the midst of all of this, you're going to hear me talk about my parents a lot, because they are my world. I got to tell you about Melvin, my dad. And yes, I am proudly named after him. My dad is a warrior. In the midst of the infertility and the business battle, I would watch my dad have 5 strokes, 5 brain bleeds, 1 brain surgery. In the month of January, he's had 2 blood clots, a fall, and pneumonia. Last year, Daddy had, and my mother had, COVID for 2 months, not 14 days. And so I'm a caretaker now. Didn't see that coming. And that caretaking looks like I'm in DC My parents are in Connecticut, and it looks like traveling overnight because I also have a business to save. And so doubt, this is one that I didn't really fully process when I talked to you before, said, how dare you have a life? How dare you? That's what doubt did. And so what do you do with all of that? How do you approach doubt? How do I still have joy? And I do have joy. It's not fake. It's not manufactured. By the way, it's not every day, but I do have it. Well, there's a couple of ways that I would like to offer as some approaches to doubt. The first. So, I don't know your doubt chronicles. I shared with you a few highlights, and I say that in parentheses of mine. But I know we all have them. I know we all have them. And so my advice is to write down your doubt chronicles and look at the real ending, not the ending that doubt gave you, what really happened. Because doubt doesn't get to decide, you do. So, infertility, I am infertile. I am in awe of mothers. I love children. And I made a decision for me that I didn't want to adopt or do surrogate or other alternatives. That decision didn't diminish what would happen next. I am very pleased to tell you that I am with the love of my life. Doubt was wrong. He was actually here getting on my nerves prior to you all getting here, helping me, because doubt is wrong. And what I have found in my life more than once is that when I look at the true story of the doubt and track it to the ending, doubt always loses. It always loses. And I am very much in love. The second thing. So this one's huge. It was one of my intentions, being vulnerable. You know what drives me nuts? We all ask the question, how are you? How you doing? We all do it. It's polite. We're supposed to. And I would venture to say that most of us say, I'm fine. Even though I've not talked to my partner, even though my kid's depressed, even though I am Zoom fatigued out, I'm fine. We do that. We do that to make other people comfortable. Here's my advice. If you want my 2 cents, don't do it. Don't do it. I no longer answer questions for other people's comfort. And if they can't handle the response, they're not my people. Ooh. I know that's harsh, but it's true. After the sexual assault, my Mr. of the moment disappeared. Not a shock there. But what was shocking is the friends that would no longer associate with me. I was dirty to them. How could I? Why didn't I fight? Are you sure you didn't lead them on? And those weren't my people. For me, I have found that you can manage doubt better when you have people who are there for your process, your pain, and your possibility. The process is life is messy. The pain is the hardship. And the possibility is your winning season. And here's the good news. We all have them. We all have them. And so my advice is don't tell everyone all your business. They don't deserve to know all your business. But I do think it's critical to have those people that when asked, how am I doing? You can authentically say, I'm not okay, and here's what I need. And I gave the example of how that played out for me. Third, this is huge. This actually happened last year. And I can't remember if it happened when we talked before. So, being Black in America, that's another webinar. But what I can tell you is I have come to believe that there is such a thing as intergenerational pain. And how do I know that? So, to be clear, my mother would put bows on my bald head. My mother would color the Santa Claus black. My mother would tell me I was beautiful. Mom did prom for me in the basement, braces, headgear. It was a whole thing. But I had other relatives who did this. It's good you're smart with you, being so brown. It's good you're ambitious with you being so brown. And last year, my aunt sat me down and asked me, what is your plan? You're getting older. You can't have kids. You're darker skin. What are you gonna do? Now, I gotta tell you, I was mad as spit at my aunt. And it took a therapy session to process what that was about. It was about the fact that that particular aunt, she didn't have kids. She didn't get married. She was living a life and continues to live a life in isolation because she's not a nice person. It's not about her Blackness. It's about her lack attitude. It's about her insecurity. And once I got that, it allowed me to realize that we can take on a lot of things. We already do. I'm a worker, I'm a caretaker, I'm this, I'm that. But what we don't deserve to take on is other people's pain. Just like I had to go to therapy, she needs to go to therapy. And so my recommendation here is when you have a doubt that is magnified by an external person, check the source. And I think what you'll find is a hurt person, because hurt people, we know the rest, hurt people. Number 4. This probably is evident, but this is what I have to tell myself every day as a business owner in COVID in DC, literally looking at the Capitol. Control is an illusion. Control is an illusion. But there are some things in our control, right? How we respond. Are we that person like my aunt who hurts other people because we're hurting, right? I think the moment that we take on that all we have is this moment is the moment we give ourselves grace for the past and grace for the future. What do I mean? I mean that in this moment, what has happened. That's done. But what that also means is what hasn't happened yet. We get to control how you feel after this session, how you feel after a client drops you or you're laid off. And I'm not saying don't feel that feeling, But what I am saying is don't let the feeling decide, that doubt decide you're done. So in business, there's no other way to say it. I am not rebounded from losing 98% of my business. And I have cried the cries. I have, or shed the tears. I have tried to reach out to people to understand why. And then I started getting up every day. I started getting dressed for myself because there was no work. And I can't tell you, and I wrote this to my subscribers, what the future is, but what I can tell you is that I have let go idolizing business owner as my only identity. If I lost my business tomorrow fully, I would be sad, I would be devastated, but I would still go on. And finally, choose your stress carefully. Here's the thing, and it kind of goes back to number 3. I am an only child, and I have decided to take on caretaking. There are some kids, there's no judgment, who would have taken it on differently. Full transparency, this is not a secret. I gave my parents my savings. That was pre-COVID. By the way, I still would have done it anyway. It is stressful, right? But I'm choosing that. I've also chosen to do life with someone who is so different than me. And for those of you who are veterans in partnership, that has stress, but I'm choosing that. And just like I'm choosing, I don't really see that aunt anymore because I can't help her with her pain, but I am actively advocating for my father who has dementia. All I am saying here is life is hard. Life is messy. Life is interesting and fun and dynamic. And you'll have tears of joy and you'll have tears of sorrow. Choose your stress wisely. So let's talk about some daily doubt busters. I was looking for another D, but I couldn't come up with it. So 1, going back to my Melvin, my dad. So one of the blessings of, and it's hard to say a blessing, but I think one of the blessings of having a parent with dementia is every day for my dad is a new day, right? He doesn't know what happened yesterday. And when I have felt down, hearing my dad so excited that he learned how to pick up the fork or stretch his arm like this resets me. It knocks me off of my pity party. My dad is my anchor. Now, Melvin won't always be here. But as the first man I ever loved, as the man who set the example, as the man who still giggles and doesn't know how to read or say much, but still tells me he loves me and he's proud of me, those memories, I believe, will continue to be my anchor. So every day, I don't know who it is for you, but I suggest you find an anchor. 2, documenting gratitude. So there's a gazillion articles out there about gratitude, but here, I want to tell you that it works. And how do I know that it works? I'm going to give you a real example. So the insurrection, I am looking at the Capitol right now, happens. When it happened, I was outside taking a walk. My partner, who has a different racial identity, he is white, called me terrified. And I had never gotten home so quickly. And so January 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, there was no gratitude. I was angry. I was mad. I was frustrated. I was done. And so this is real life. I just started documenting gratitude 3 days ago. And my mood is different. Stress is still there, but my mood is different. So gratitude. This week, I learned of a venue manager, 46, who died of COVID. But my dad is still kicking. I lost a huge contract with work, but I have loyal clients who give me work that feeds my soul. And so maybe it's not the big things, maybe it's the little things, like I'm probably gonna have McDonald's fries later. Yes, that's going in the journal. But I think if you do that and you read it before you go to bed, I have found that it's a game changer with moods. So similarly, document victories. So these kind of work interchangeably. But I think sometimes we're waiting for the big win. So I gave that example of the contract. I'm talking about the little wins. So one of the things that is new for me in this season, as if I wanted another thing, is I have arthritis. My grandmother had it, my mother has it. It's a rheumatoid arthritis, which is very painful. And I take medication for it. But here's a victory. I can take medication for it. Here's a victory. I did dance class this morning at 6 a.m. I was a little offbeat, but I did it, okay? So even if they're the small victories, don't wait for the big win. Look at the bright spot, the little speck that lets you know you're headed on the right path. And then here's my new one. Feel. I like things in threes. It's a thing. Feel, release, and think. So if I had to tell my younger self anything, I would tell her all of this, but I would tell her, feel all the feelings. Get mad, cry, do something and be labeled the crazy ex. Feel all the feelings and then release it. Because I have found that if you don't release your doubt, it'll restrain you. It'll shrink you. Had I not done the work in therapy, and I'm a huge proponent of therapy, and let me say, when I didn't have money, I'm a huge proponent of getting to a graduate school program and talking to someone in training. This is my PSA. If you need resources, get them. But had I not done the work to repair myself, I wouldn't have been ready to see love when it's real. Now, I am grateful to be in love with me. And I'm grateful that he is along for the ride. He is not my everything. He is someone, something that expands me. I'm my own everything. Feel, then you release and do the work, and then you think. And how do you think? Well, how I think is part of this season, I think for me, is doing this, telling stories, letting women see a woman who, there's some stories I haven't even told you. Because I think it was Robin Givens, is that her name, who said, make your mess your message. And so maybe that's not how you think. Maybe you think by documenting your doubt chronicle. Maybe you think by telling your kiddo what you learned. But feel, release, and think. I think if you do these things daily, you kind of nip doubt's power before it even starts. And then finally, so I have the identity as a Christian. Sorry, this is what happens when you wear big earrings. And I recognize not everyone has that identity. So I've got 2 ways for you to look at this. Push. You can pray until something happens, or you can persist until something happens, right? Another way to think of it is hold on, pain ends. Hope. And so we're almost done, but I did want to give you a moment to stay in contact with me. I'm actually pretty proud of myself that I'm doing better with social media, and would love for you to follow along. But I'm going to stop the share for a second because I like to end how I started. So I'm into poetry. It's kind of my jam. I'm always looking for new talent. And so I found this poem by a woman, Selena Odom. I don't know her, new to me. And her poem is titled Bend. And to close this out, I'm going to read this poem after I take a sip of coffee, just being honest, because my throat is dry. Give me a second. Just being honest. Normalizing being human in practice. Here we are. Okay, and before I read it, thank you, Tide Risers, for being here with me and Tide Riser guests. It reads, I bend, but do not break. I've been lost, but I'm not a loser. I'm a wreck, but I'm not totaled. I'm fractured, but not broken. I've failed, but I'm not a failure. I've fallen hard, but can get up again. I'm isolated, but still I'm free. I have been destroyed, but will rebuild. My heart is broken, but it will mend. See, no matter how close I come to breaking, I just continue to bend. Thank you.
Melva, thank you so much for that. I love the silent applause. Thank you, everybody. I mean, where do I even begin? What you've given us, Melva, is so powerful. And what it is that you've given us is your story. And a beautiful example of, I think, all 4 of our Tide Risers leadership principles, right? Authenticity, really being true to who you are in front of an audience, many of whom are people you don't know, which is courage. Ownership, really taking ownership of your life story and owning it to the point at which you can not only learn from it and grow because of it, but also teach it to others, teach what you've learned to others. I think that's really brilliant. And then abundance, just giving us so generously your perspective and your learnings. And I really appreciate all of that. I feel like I learned so much from the session that you do, Melva. I think between like the approaches to doubt and your doubt busters, and then just a couple of like really amazing moments that just pop out to me, like wanting your people to be there for you, for your process, your pain, and your possibility. That's going to really stick with me. And I just want to shout out to those of you who are on this call who are my people. Many of you are my people. Tide Risers, the whole community is my people, even those of you who I don't know as well as others. Like there's a level of trust in this community that I think is quite exceptional and rare, and enables us to have these kind of sessions where we can dig into our vulnerability and learn about ourselves. And when our I'm going to pass it over to Katie Singh in just a moment to talk a little bit more about our upcoming spring cohort. But one of the things that I do want to say is that I think Vidya, who's on the call, first said this to me, and I've since then heard it from a lot of other people, is that a lot of women come to Tide Risers to delve into professional development, and actually find that sort of one of the biggest takeaways for them was personal development, and that they needed to get through the personal kind of advancement by doing this deep dive into like, who am I? What is my identity? How do I show up in the world? What is doubt doing to me? How can I uncover some of those hidden barriers? And then once you get through that process, you're able to really advance professionally in a much more powerful way than if you hadn't done that work. So I just wanted to like call this out as a really important example for us of how we can own our story, own our history, and rewrite the ending, as Melva so powerfully illustrated for us. So thank you again, Melva. Melva, could you just pop into the chat your contact details? Anybody who's in Tide Risers can get in touch with Melva through Slack, which is how we all communicate. But if you could just give us all of your other details as well, that would be great. I want to introduce you all now to Katie Singh. I think a lot of you have had contact with her. She is our Chief Growth and Strategy Officer for Tide Risers. And she is going to talk a little bit about our upcoming program and how this all kind of ties in together. So I'm going to pass it over to you now, Katie.
Thanks, Laura. And I just want to say a big thank you to Melva too for sharing your story with us today. As Laura said, it's so beautifully modeled so many of our principles and Tide Risers. So I just want to again thank you for sharing it with us. And I'm just so looking forward to having you in our spring 2021 cohort moving forward. So really excited about that. And I have so many gems that I took away from this conversation. And even though I've known you for years, I just feel so grateful to have gotten that full story today. So thank you. Thank you. Well, again, thank you all for joining us. And I'm excited to see so many folks who are joining our spring 2021 cohort or who are considering it on this call today. So I want to take in a minute, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the program, how to sign up, and just a couple more details about our community. But we do have many members and former Tide Risers alums on the call today. So I actually wanted to ask a couple of them to share their experience and just tell you sort of what they learned or what their transformation was in the Tide Risers program. So Shannon, I think I'll start with you. Shannon, do you want to share a little bit with the group just about your experience and your transformation with Tide Risers in just a few minutes?
Sure. Thank you so much, Katie. And thank you, Melva, for such a powerful session today. It's definitely reflects everything that I love about Tide Risers and why I'm here also. So I'm Shannon, for those of you who don't know me. I'm an alum of the summer 2020 cohort, which was actually the first virtual cohort. And I think Laura really hit the nail on the head with me. I was a perfect example of somebody really just looking for professional development. I didn't know what to expect, especially in a remote environment. But I was incredibly blown away by really the community of women, the culture of support, and the real connections framed around the culture that Laura's really fostered of being authentic to yourself and showing up just the way you are. for me, networking, mentorship, those were two things that, I'd always sought out at that point in my career. I'm 12 to 13 years in, and it's something that I really wanted. It never felt authentic in other areas of life, and therefore it wasn't helpful for me. So Tide Risers for me, both the curriculum as well as especially the culture that Laura has very intentionally structured for the program, it was really impactful for me because I think for so many of us ambitious achievers, we're driving towards our next goal. It's really, I realized that I had never set intentional time for myself, dedicated to me for purposeful reflection, to examine and question, thought patterns that I've carried with me throughout my life that were affecting me both professionally and personally. And Tide Risers was really such a welcome and refreshing community of supportive, non-judgmental women around me. As I was exploring a really, really vulnerable part of my place, essentially with strangers, we quickly came together, even virtually. And those bonds, especially through our small group work and being able to explore, we call it the stick with her groups, but having accountability support and connecting with mission-driven women for me was tremendous. The thing that I took away most from Tide Risers was really a framework to continue a lived practice. And I think Melva's session here today is a perfect example for me of being able to, be humbled and continue to learn from other people's experiences in a way that you can question all those things that, we've trained ourselves to believe and make deliberate choices to really show up to be, different versions of ourselves. So I came looking for professional development, and I ended up finding a really tremendous community that keeps pulling me back for moments just like this. So Laura asked the question the other day, how do you invest in yourself? I don't know if any of you saw that. And for me, the answer is spending time in this community. So that's how I've been able to benefit from this community and show up for myself through all of you. So thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you for that. Well, I'm going to share my screen for a minute just so you can all see some of the details of our program. And this is my human moment, Melva. I so appreciated and loved that because I feel like whenever I go to share my screen on a Zoom, I'm like never sure exactly what's going to show up or what challenges I'm going to face. So that's one of the gems that I'm going to keep with me from your talk. So I want to share a little bit about what the Spring 2021 program is. Shannon mentioned the small groups. We're actually calling those bespoke groups moving forward. But for the Spring 2021 cohort, you are going to get 5 live Zoom sessions. So sessions where the entire cohort will come together and they'll be led by Tide Risers coaches. So we have some Tide Risers coaches here on the call today. But these sessions are going to dig into lots of really sort of our core curriculum topics, which I'll share more about in a minute. As Shannon mentioned, we also have small groups, and that is a real place where you'll build relationships and just have a chance to go deeper into the content with women who have similar interests, similar backgrounds. Those bespoke groups will also be facilitated by a Tide Risers coach. So you'll meet more than twice, but that coach will really help your group kick off, think about how you're going to work together as a group, and think about how you can make the most of your time together. In addition to sort of the Spring 2021 cohort experience, you're also a member of the broader Tide Risers community. So we're really excited this year to be offering members 3 networking sessions and 4 what we call up-level hers, which are skill building sessions led by different members in our community. And in addition, you also have access to our private online platform, which is Slack. And I know some of you who have applied and joined the Spring 2021 cohort are already on there, already. So that's what the program looks like. Laura talked about these, so I won't go into these in much detail, other than to say that I just think Melva modeled these in all the best ways today. And I think this is what we say, like, this is how we do our work together as a community. So that's really like how we think about how we work together. These details are around what each of the sessions are and the dates. So again, these are the 6 live sessions where we'll come together as a cohort. The smaller group sessions, those are going to be scheduled based on your availability. So there's a lot of flexibility in when those small groups happen. But these are the dates of those sort of full group sessions. And the concept, our curriculum is all framed around the concept of emprise. And the way we think about this is really taking this holistic view of you and your life, right? So it's not just about your professional, but it's about your personal life as well, and how all that fits into you really being your best self. Lara, would you add anything on emprise or just the way that we frame the curriculum?
It's I think a way of thinking about how to approach your next step in life. And that can be a very big next step, or it can be something much more kind of personal and internal and maybe not noticeable by anyone else in the world. So we've had people for whom, their emprise was maybe launching a new business or changing careers. And then it could also be for other people, it has been, shifting a dynamic within your household to make things run more smoothly, or really shifting the way you approach something just sort of like within yourself very personally. So I think the interesting thing about the emprise framework and our program is that we have really designed it to meet you where you're at because of the diversity of this community and the fact that we are all, as individuals and women coming at this from very different places. So I think that's what is quite powerful about the program.
Thank you. Yes. Great. So I just want to quickly cover again what you get, what the cost is, some next steps, and then I do want to ask another member to share her experience, Danielle Pickens, with us as we close out. So membership, if you're interested in joining us, which we would love for you to consider, is $1,600. And again, it includes everything that I mentioned as a part of the spring 2021 cohort experience. And then anything in part of the broader Tide Risers community. So just wanted to, these are just all kind of laid out here. Discounted memberships are available. We don't want cost to be a barrier for any woman who wants to join our community. So if you do have a need for a discounted membership, please feel free to reach out to me as a follow-up to this session, because we definitely want to encourage you to still consider joining. So apply, we are running a promotion through tomorrow. If you apply by tomorrow, you get a free 2021 Summit ticket. My date is wrong there. That's my human moment again. But if you apply by tomorrow, February 5th, you will still receive a free 2021 Summit ticket. So definitely take advantage of that great offer. We also have a couple of upcoming recruitment events to just share a little bit more about the program and our community. So feel free to jump on either of those if those look interesting. And as I mentioned, don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions about membership. Would love to chat and share more about the program with you. I'm going to leave this slide up just so you all can see next steps, but I'd love to invite Danielle in our last 2 minutes just to share her experience with Tide Risers and what it's meant to her to be a member.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. Hey, everyone. I'm Danielle Pickens. I was in the New York City 2020 cohort, and what a year 2020 was. I came to Tide Risers at a professional crossroads. So kind of like what Lara was saying, I had been in the education space for like 2 decades working on HR and talent issues. And while I always fashioned myself as kind of a great number 2, I never really felt the urge to take on a huge sort of leadership role in the space. And I always felt this kind of nagging feeling that there was something else, something different I was meant to be doing. Have you ever felt like that? Like, I'm just not quite sure that this is where I'm supposed to be. So I joined Tide Risers with this idea that maybe I could start to build out some other paid work, sort of in the working parent space, that was more in line with where I wanted to be, really helping to make parenthood simpler and more sustainable. But I really had still like a lot of doubt, like, is this possible? Can I do this? Can I make money? Am I just kind of a number 2? Can I be a number 1? And I would say that the support, the community, the feedback, the encouragement, the session on identity in particular really pushed me forward, not just in my thinking, but also in my action. People would check in and they would say, how's it going? So I'm just so excited to now say that I have like multiple clients in this space. Like I still have doubt, but I'm like grateful for those moments where I'm like, I actually did this, and I feel like I did it as part of this community. So I just want to say, if you're thinking about taking the plunge, do it. No two journeys are the same, and you get out of it what you put in. But if you're ready to make some kind of interesting changes in your life, it's a really good investment in yourself. So I know we're at time. I'm going to wrap it up.
Thank you, Danielle. I appreciate it. Yes, we don't want to hold you. We really appreciate your time. I'll stay on for a couple of minutes if there's anyone who has questions about the program or joining to the Tide Risers community. But again, just wanted to thank everybody for being on here today. And again, really excited to welcome many of you as new members this year, and happy to answer any questions you all have as well. But Melva, thank you. And thank you all for being here with us today.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Katie, Danielle, Shannon. Thank you so much.
Melva, that was awesome. Thank you. If you're still on.
Melva was
Amazing.
amazing.
Isn't she amazing?
Yes,
She's
Melva's
always
not
amazing.
on like,
I think
oh,
she's not
I mean,
on,
it's
I know.
amazing.
So
Okay.
I want to ask her questions. Where is she? No.
Good
Thank
to
you
see all
guys.
of
This
you.
was great. Oh, I love
Thank
you
you.
all.
Now I get to have a call with video, so we're both gonna hop off maybe.
Aw.
I get to talk to Jamie
Lucky
about
you.
Tide Risers.
Do it here.
So I get to
We're talking about
bring
Tide
momentum
Risers
forward.
now.
Bye all.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Good to see you. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you so much. It was great to learn more.
Awesome.
Bye.
Does anyone have any questions? I know we had to do that quickly, and I know some of you all are going to be with us this year. Jennifer, I know you applied. Exciting.
Yeah, I was super excited. I'll email everything I'm supposed to like over the weekend. But yeah, I'm excited. I've known Vidya for years and Jamie
Oh, yay.
indirectly through Vidya for years. So but yeah, I was like, oh God, I have to come up with a goal. But anyway, no, no, but that was super helpful because I know Vidya was like trying to explain it to me once, but that whole thing about the personal impacting the professional, like the professional development is what I think I need, but like it totally makes sense that it traces back to personal. I'm like, oh God, more of this, but
It's hard, right? It's like sometimes you don't, you're like, I wish it didn't, but it always does.
It's all that, and just like, I mean, Melva was amazing, but that thing about shrinking, like, is totally something that I've even noticed recently, and it's like, oh, it's still there. So it was like really great to hear. I don't think I have any questions yet. I'm just like,
Okay.
anyway, I'm excited to start, but
Awesome. Well, don't hesitate
and
to
you guys,
if anything comes up.
oh, okay. And the Slack thing, do I find out about that when I send all this, when I respond to your email and stuff?
Once
Great.
you're like fully onboarded,
Okay.
with your payment and everything, then you'll be added to Slack.
Great. Okay, that'll happen this weekend. But thank you so much. This is super helpful. It's
Thanks,
great
Jennifer.
to get up to know all of you. Okay, bye.
Bye, Jennifer. Thanks for joining.
Hey, relax.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, I just realized I was off mute.
Lindsay, one
Sorry.
second. We have a question from
No worries.
Jalila. Are you there?
She's asking if the recording will be available. Yes, we are going to make this recording available for others to see. Yeah.
No problem.
Oh, no worries, Jalila.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'll probably take us a little while to get it up, but we will get it out. We'll get it out soon.
Did you have any other questions, Jalila, or? Okay. Awesome.